Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about a subject, might be considered profound, might be considered something very subjective, and it's about life. Now, life, is defined, as something like, an organism, something that is actually living, something that, that is differentiated from things that are inorganic. Organisms are things that live. And also, life could be, perceived as, longevity in what we do, during, the story of, the course of one's, I guess you could say, their living, you know, um, during the time that they are, in existence or what have you. So the thing is, I think life is often about, about not the adversity that one goes through, but being resilient and being able to bounce back from it. Life will deal us, a lot of hard blows, and you know, a lot of times, they say, well, people, not people, but God, won't give us generally more than, we can handle. I do believe, that does seem to be true, at least for, most scenarios. I think life is often associated with what we make of it. You know, the problem is, there's so many people that are born into different conditions. Some people are born to impoverished conditions, oppression. There's other people, that are, very affluent, and they're born royal, connected with royalty when they're born. And some people do, have to work harder during the course of one's existence to make a better life for his or herself. What happened with me was, I've succumbed to a number of restrictions, in the course, of my life. I've had extensive nerve damage to my arms. I can't engage, in vigorous, sports activities, you know, um, which is basically irrevocable damage. I also have a bad back. I have, something you might have heard of it called a protruding or bulging disc in the lower back. And I'm not deformed. I don't have anything that's actually protruding out of my back, but I do have, I can't do, heavy lifting, and, the disc could be out of place, in your back, you know, by maybe not even an inch possibly. I don't know what the measurement is exactly in my case, but it could be off by just a very minuscule amount, and could cause, obviously, some problems and some, pain periodically because of this, and, some tingling, etc. So it's like, and I've had to work through, a lot of those restrictions, and, you know, life can be restricting. Sometimes we impose our own restrictions on it. Sometimes, they're actually, there's restrictions that are just there, and that we wish we can kind of work through. Maybe have a harder time doing it than we would like, because of my physical, I guess you could say, debilitations or disabilities that I have. I can't drive. This has really curtailed, any progress really, in finding that elusive love. I've had to resort, mainly to internet, to try to find someone. And, and the thing is, when you have certain restrictions, obviously money, doesn't come that easy. And I'm being not the most affluent person. I'm somebody that, I'd like to say, well, I'm rich in spirit, I'm affluent that way, but it doesn't cut it really, in a lot of cases in today's society, unfortunately. And I think, life is about, maximizing whatever potentials you have and capitalizing on, opportunities. Now, I had other opportunities when I was much younger, in, I guess you could say, my formative years, which I didn't really cash in on. And I think, obviously I felt repercussions right now because of this, and even today, sometimes I'll be lamenting over, those things that maybe I could have done and should have done but didn't do. Now people will say, well, you shouldn't lament over those things, and I try not to, but sometimes it's hard not to do that, considering if you're kind of in a situation when you're alone like me. I mean, you don't have that significant other and you're by yourself a lot of the time. It really, you can't help but have some of those thoughts resonate, in your mind regarding those things. And, life is something, like I stated before, that we have to, it's important to try to maximize, what you're able, to do with whatever, God-given abilities that one has. I mean, I try to work it within my restrictions. I mean, I'm able, I'm functional. I can go to the store, and do my shopping. Like I stated, I can't do heavy, strenuous lifting. I can't do anything repetitive. You know, basically, I have some enjoyment, which is on, basically online. I do writing, as some of you may have seen in a previous videos. I do write. I do sports writing for a Nashville homeless paper. Yes, I was. Most number of you know that I was homeless previously, and on two occasions. One for 4-year period, and then there was another period where I was homeless. For maybe like about a month or so. And obviously those were very agonizing experiences, and periods where I was in a state of trepidation. It was very frightening. And I think life is also about learning, from your past wrongs, iniquities, or just things that, mishaps, mistakes that were made. There's been times where I've, contemplated, okay, here's the $1 million question. Would I rather have $1 million, or would I rather go back in time 20 years? Well, the easy answer for a lot of people would say, take the money and run. But, I kind of look at it like, well, I would rather go back 20 years because maybe I could rectify certain things that had happened back in that, 20 years ago, which would have put me in a better, overall life situation now. And you can't put a price on your life or your years. That's another thing too. Also, after $1 million, maybe I'd only have about 600,000 left after tax. I'm only kidding. I mean $1 million cleared after taxes, so maybe that'd be closer to 2 million taxed. Anyway, yeah, I think life has to be something where, you have to sometimes create your own enjoyment. If you have to work within certain parameters or certain restrictions. I think you look at, you have, friends, contemporaries can help that. It's good to have, some social interaction in your life. I don't really have much, with the exception of people, on the internet I talk to. I have a few friends I converse with, on the phone sometimes. Once in a while, I'll go out and, I'll see some people actually in person. And I think life is also about making sure, you're not dominated by one particular thing. Don't let, things, anything become all-encompassing to the point where it just takes over and you forget about, everybody else. I can understand somebody having a newborn child, they have to kind of, look after that person, for a while initially. But, there are other, there's so many different things, in life. I mean, someone might be justified in having certain things take over their life for a certain period of time. I had a friend of mine that had a child that died, through some kind of, volatile action by somebody. And basically, it seemed like for all intents and purposes, he cut off communication with a number of his friends. I think he's probably in another state right now. And, I understand we all have different responses to certain things in life. But it's important to also, as I've stated, if I'm going to reiterate, to come back from certain adverse situations, from problems, from certain dilemmas you face, and don't let that become so overwhelming that it really takes that it messes might essentially ruin your life. I mean, I've done, I when I was younger, I had some opportunities that weren't capitalized on. My grandparents had offered me, you know, to go to college, and I basically essentially refused because I just didn't want to do it at that time. And now, it's like the saying goes, you make your bed and you lay in it. Don't get me wrong, I have my own forms of enjoyment right now. I mean, I have a little, you know, uh, YouTube astrology channel, and as I stated before, I do my sports writing for a paper. I have certain diversions, you know, to make life somewhat enjoyable. But you could give yourself certain distractions, but obviously it's not going to eradicate, maybe the things, possibly in someone's life like mine, that are connected with some restrictions and certain things that inhibit you from really, doing, having the happiness that you truly want. So, I think it's important to remember that. It was like when someone told me one time, maybe, close to 25, years ago, somewhere around there, that, you know, I said that, sometimes I really like to go to sleep because I could forget about all my problems. And the person said to me, yeah, but you know what? When you wake up, they're basically looking at you dead in the eye. And you know what? He was right. I mean, I didn't really like, it was kind of a brusque, blunt statement, but, he had a point in what he was saying. So it's important to just try to make the decisions to, maybe even earlier in life, education, you know, do the best you can, get really, to get exceptional grades in school. So, and, have a plan, whether it's collegiate or some, job, vocation school, something where, you do something, have a plan early in life, and follow your passion and follow your dreams and what you aspire to be. And, that would, it's not going to mean you won't face adversity or problems, in other avenues in life later on, but it sure will help. I think it would help people out immensely. So anyway, people, that's basically what I wanted to talk about, as far as life goes in general. And anyway, um, this is Edwin Learnard, and until next time, people, stay well.